Welcome to History with Hensley, and today I want to talk about a time in the late 19th century where we saw great upheaval for Native American tribes in the United States. To preface this, European settlers arrived in what we know as North America in the 15th century and noticed quickly how populated the lands were with communities of Native Americans. Expansion through negotiations in the public eye and declarations of friendship all the way to deceit and genocide, these Native American tribes were being combined, moved, and even destroyed. The lust for expansion turned the Native Americans to secondary status. Cue our topic of this video, the Ghost Dance Movement. Native American tribes in the late 1800s were experiencing loss of land, culture, and autonomy due to government policies and settler expansion. The round dance, closely tied to the Ghost Dance Movement, was brought to light by a northern Paiute, Wadzawab. In 1871, he said in a vision of God, should the American Indians perform the round dance, the whites will disappear from their land, ancestors will return from the dead, and animals hunted will also return. As expected, the round dance movement died quickly with no results to show and was revived by a Paiute named Wovoka in 1898. Wovoka mixed his Christian influence with his father's assistance through Wadzawab, and the ghost dance movement begins. The ghost dance was a practice of clean living, faithful dancing, peaceful adjustments with the whites, and following God's chosen leaders. Doing so would aid in the resurrection of dead relatives and the restoration of the prosperous Indian days. The Lakota people sent tribesmen to hear the words and learn the ceremonies to perform and practice the ghost dance from Wovoka. The ghost dance acted as a symbol of hope throughout tribes as they were suffering from poor conditions on their own reservations. The Lakota tribe adopted tribal symbols on white robes during their ceremonies, which they also believed to make them bulletproof. The ghost dance movement spread quickly throughout Nevada, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, the Dakotas, and Nebraska. With the rapid spread of a movement that aimed to restore the prosperous lands of the Indians and make sure whites would disappear, it was sensible for the U.S. Army to take notice and feel threatened. So threatened that they went to a reservation of around 250 Sitting Bull followers to stop the rise of the movement. Although Sitting Bull was not a ghost dancer, it didn't stop Sitting Bull from being arrested and a conflict ensuing. The tragic incident, now known as the Battle in the Dark, resulted in 12 slain Indians, one of those Indians being Sitting Bull. If you think 12 Indians killed was the worst part of the ghost dance movement, allow me to inform you about the Wounded Knee Massacre in late December of 1890. Life in the reservations for the Lakota was rough, to say the least. They were forced into raising livestock, growing crops, dressing Western, learning English, and observing the Christian religion. After the act of assimilation by the government, the culture and identity of the Lakota was torn away and they relied on government rations in order to live. In 1889, Congress gutted the Lakota rations budget and left them essentially to starve alongside the harsh winters and drought between 1889 and 1890. Eventually, the U.S. Army once again felt threatened by the movement of the ghost dance and made an attempt to disarm a group of Lakota at Wounded Knee Creek in southwestern South Dakota. This massacre was considered the climax of repressing the Plains Indians. In an attempt to disarm, the military pushed hard, considering the Lakota surrendered some guns in good faith. Their search of course continued, and the military found a stash of hidden weapons. Respectively, the Lakota were getting gradually more and more upset with the antics from the U.S. military, and tempers began to flare. In an attempt to recover the weapons from the imprisoned refugees, a gun fired off and the soldiers began opening fire. After the shooting died down, hundreds of Lakota bodies were scattered throughout the ground. Among these bodies were men, women, and children. The soldiers did not discriminate when aiming and firing their weapons at the Lakota, and especially at the defenseless women and children fleeing. The ghost dance movement soon became obsolete. Conditions for the American Indians changed, and it did continue through the 20th century in different forms in a few tribes still. However, the ghost dance continues to be remembered and honored by Native American communities today.